And we are back. We have our top cut round for you guys. We've got Olsson VGC here against AngeloHunter. Two teams that we talked about here on our break a little bit. AngeloHunter is bringing in an Armarouge, Indeedee, Iron Hands, Mousehold, Dondozo, and Tatsugiri. Who do we have over here on Olsson's side?
I'm ready to see. Can truly anyone cook? We're going to find out. Of course, it is the interesting team of Mousehole. But the one thing I want to point out that everything looks regular until you see Gyarados. Right. And it was even more interesting. It's not like a, super effective, electric berry. It's Yachi berry, which is interesting because you do have to worry about, of course, bundle being such a problem. It is 4 times, so you do want to worry about that. So we do see that is the berry of choice. And now Gyarados is a mon that does have some potential because it does have Intimidate. Water, we barely have too many of those great typings, so you always want to find a good water type. Flying's always good. But unfortunately, the speed is not where it needs to be, but it does have niche things it can do, like T-Wave. But, we are going to get to see it, so this is going to be very interesting. Of course, Angelo, we did see this team. It was bought by the Lily Pad boys. Anyone can cook, of course, Mousehole being the chef that can kind of control the puppeteers of course, the Dondozo, Tatsugiri, the Armarouge, and Indeedee, and, of course, Iron Hands, just to throw it all together.
Yeah, and we can see from the team sheets here, this Gyarados running a Waterfall, Thunder Wave, and Protect, with that Flying Terra being a key one here. It's really cool to see when you see a Mon that is using a Terra type that they already have, using Terra Blast, because that Terra Blast becomes very, very strong. And really puts a lot of extra viability. I feel like Terra Blast is almost even better in those circumstances than it is on these regular mons. But we'll see these leads come out here. It's going to be the Psy-Spam lead for Angelo, and Olsson's going to be leading here with Mousehold and Fluttermane.
See, this is now an interesting spot, just because depending on what type of Terra this Fluttermane is, if it is that Terra Steel, you could potentially just do that. Or if it's, who knows, Terra Dark. You have a lot of options, but either way, one of the good things you can do here is go for that Super Fang, get off a lot of good damage, just to potentially take out this Indeedee if it does go for Follow Me. And you do have the Citrus Berry, so you will be able to tank whatever comes in, but we do see that is the perfect counter to Psy-Spam is that Kingambit does swap in here for the Mousehole, getting rid of the Friend Guard, but we are going to get a lot of great damage coming out from this Iron... Oh, instead we do see a Protect, actually. So going a little bit more on the defensive end, not trying to lose them on just yet. And we do see a Follow Me come out, potentially a Trick Room here.
Yeah, a little bit of redirection coming from this Indeedee. Going to keep things going. Trick Room's going to fire off from that Armarouge. And now Kingambit's actually in a pretty good position here, while Fluttermane, of course, taking that time to be a little bit more defensive and get the Protect in. But if that Fluttermane has a Sash or anything, I believe... It does not. It's going to be a Life Orb Fluttermane on Olsson's side here. So we'll see how this ends up playing out as the Terrestrialization is going to fire off. I believe this is from Olsson's side. Going into the Kingambit, always the king of Terrestrialization. Going to Terrestrialize into that Dark type, usually to make those Sucker Punches even more fierce. But in this situation, it looks like it's going to be probably an Assurance, since that's going to be blocked by the Psychic Terrain. Terrestrialization also going to come up for Angelo here, going into that Armarouge. Armarouge, also another one that really likes this Grass type Terra typing. Going to get rid of those Psychic weaknesses. And now Assurance is hitting a little less hard on that Armarouge. Indeedee going to fire off a Helping Hand into Armarouge, going to make sure that it is in a prime position to do what it does best. Assurance firing off this Terra boosted Kingambit into the Armarouge, not doing too much now that it is a Grass type Armor Cannon, firing off into the Fluttermane. And of course, we saw that this is not a Focus Sash Fluttermane, and it's going to go down to an Armor Cannon.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised they're just... you were in a tough spot there, but I felt like you were in a good spot just to potentially swap in Mousehold again, just to be able to tank that, because Mousehold is relatively really bulky and do have the Citrus Berry, so I'm surprised that was not kind of the thing of choice there. But we do see Fluttermane does go down. Assurance, unfortunately, not able to get that awesome damage as before, just because that Terra of Grass typing. But either way, still doing some pretty relatively good damage all in all.
Yeah, Armarouge showing why it is so viable in VGC and why it's been used so much. We saw at least 3 of them in the top cut. or the top 10 even. And that size spam combo, as we've seen earlier in this tournament, it is absolutely devastating. One that hasn't necessarily won very many tournaments, but has at least put a lot of people in top cut. Like we're seeing now, Follow Me firing off this Indeedee, going to make sure that it takes all of the attacks that are coming out. Assurance, which this Indeedee does not take very well, going into that Indeedee with a Terra boost, is going to leave it at just a sliver of health. Armor Cannon's going to fire off of this Kingambit off of the Armarouge into the Kingambit, leaving it with about half of its health. That critical defense drop now too, really stacking on this Armarouge, putting it in a very vulnerable position here. Super Fang's going to fire off into that Indeedee, leaving it with just a sliver of health, but Super Fang, of course, only taking half of it, so not getting the most mileage out of that Super Fang for sure.
Yeah, one of those interesting things, like now, again, once again, little, I felt like King Gambit is kind of the star of the show, especially under Trick Room right now. So I'm surprised Olsson kind of let that damage go through instead of just clicking Follow Me. But this time does Follow Me decides, okay, I've taken a lot of damage because of that crit, so now let me go ahead and start kind of trying to protect as much as I can. And Indeedee does go down because it only had a little bit of course, HP left. Does pick up the KO with a nice Iron Head there. We do see another Armor Cannon just trying to get off as much damage as possible. And look at that, just absolutely tanked it marvelously. Wow. He's going to activate the Citrus Berry. And once again, King Gambit under this Trick Room here is still in a relatively really good spot.
Yeah, surviving on 4 HP, proccing that berry and giving it just a little bit more life back. Taking that Armor Cannon absolutely critical here. Of course, at this point, Armor is kind of locked into that Armor Cannon, right? You can't hit an Expanding Force when you got a Dark type sitting right next to it. And this Iron Heads is going to come out in a very interesting position. Usually it likes to be in a position where it can fake out, but it is not in that position right now. The Friend Guard still showing to be a pretty handy ability here for this mouse.
Yeah, absolutely. Really interesting spot though, just because Fluttermane going down now puts you in a really tough position versus this Iron Hands, and I'm wondering how can you really approach this? Of course you can get an Intimidate, that's fine, but we do have to remember Iron Hands has that electric typing, so not really the best situation to have it in the back after Fluttermane has gone down. So really tough decisions Olsson has to make here to see if he can get this end game in a good place.
We see the Protect firing off of Armor is going to keep it safe for this turn here. And we see the Protect also trading on each side here for the Mousehold. So Mousehold going to make sure it stays alive, make sure Friend Guard stays up. Drain Punch is going to be enough to take out this Kingambit. So a pretty fair exchange here for Angelo.
Absolutely. If you're Angelo, you absolutely take that. Either way, your whole job was to put yourself in a position where Armarouge is still alive, and then you can just go ahead and kind of do what you want, just because Fluttermane's not here. So whatever's in the back, any combination between these two should be able to handle it. And we do see, of course, it is that Gyarados. It does lay down and Intimidate, but unfortunately, that doesn't really matter here because there's still one more Pokemon in the back. So Angelo still got a lot of things you can do here, and is really cooking up a victory here for this game one, it looks like.
The mileage that it's going to be able to get out of this Gyarados, it's in a really precarious position. If it's got Earthquake, it may be able to do some damage to that Iron Hands, but I don't know. No, we do know that it doesn't have that. So we're going to see the Protect coming off the Iron Hands, going to keep it safe for this turn. While we see the Super Fang firing off, it would be going into the Iron Hands, but of course it is protected. And now it looks like it's going to be Gyarados' turn to use a Waterfall, also going into the protected Iron Hands. And not the best turn here for Olsson, as Armarouge gets a free chance to Armor Cannon into the Mousehold here, which will take it out. Now it is Gyarados against the world.
Absolutely, a really tough spot. And Angelo just making the safe read of like, okay, even though you have the Intimidate, I have the distinct advantage because Iron Hands is still here. It is the most threatening thing on the field. So I can just protect here, and then if Armarouge does go down, it's perfectly fine because next turn you don't have enough to take me down. And whatever's in the back can help Iron Hands clean this up because Gyarados unfortunately cannot win that 1v1 situation. So really, really well played there by Angelo. I think he got away from Olsson a little bit under the Trick Room turns, just thinking, oh, you know what? I can potentially just, Fluttermane will get off a big hit there, but needed to preserve that Fluttermane just because Iron Hands is in the back, and it just unfortunately, let it go down a little too early. So it was a tough thing for Gambit to try to bring back itself.
Now, change that whole match around and get Gyarados in there with the flying type terrestrialization and fire off a Terra Blast into that Iron Hands beforehand, and that may look a little bit different.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and then I think that shows the importance of when you terrestrialize. If you have a situation where Iron Hands is left there, then Gyarados is pretty threatened, right? It's got that 4 times weakness if it can't Terra, and at least reduce it down to a 2 times weakness with the flying Terra. But more importantly, get that 4 times stab on a Terra Blast going that direction.
Yeah,
That's gonna be rough, right?
absolutely. So we'll have to see if those adjustments are being made here, and even then, just because like King Gambit is just naturally good under Trick Room, so
Yeah.
maybe next time you just put him on the Trick Room and you don't necessarily have to just Terra there. As long as you get Mouse Hold next to King Gambit, then you're pretty fine because anything that's potentially helping hand boosted, you can just like, oh, I'll just follow me away because we did see it did live on that one armor cannon, and either way, if you have to spend a turn just helping handed just to get rid of the Mouse Hold, that gives you a free hit into something and you can do some good damage. But we do see a way different lead here, and this potentially could get bad because we do see Dozo now.
Right.
Is the commander in the back is what we have to figure out.
That's the thing. This is a lead that I love doing. Okay, so we see Dozo Rouge here, and we see, of course, Fluttermane and Kingambit on Olsson's side. Now, the Dozo Rouge lead here, I think, is particularly interesting because you have 2 options. You can swap in Tatsu on one side, or you can swap in Indeedee on the other side. You have to worry about an expanding force, or you have to worry about Dozo doing Dozo things. And this is the kind of mind games that I think are very important to play when you have open team sheet, and show that like having an open team sheet doesn't mean that you have all the tricks thrown out of your sleeve. You certainly do. As we see, the Fluttermane is going back on Olsson's side, and in that place, we're going to see the Gyarados come out, dropping in an Intimidate on Armarouge and on Dozo. We'll see if there's any switch out on Angelo's side, and we see on Angelo's side that's going to be the Rouge coming out. So it looks like this may be, and it is the Tatsu. So it is Dozo time as Tatsu hops into Dozo's mouth and sets it up for a potentially very scary situation. The speed, of course, being the stretchy form here. So every time Order Up's going to be hit, that's going to give it a speed boost. I don't know if they've had the update yet or not, whether or not Protect is going to stop that or not, but we'll find out. We see the terrestrialization here for Kingambit going into that dark type. We saw a big threat of that before. It's gonna be interesting to see if there's a sucker punch coming off of there. I like to say that it's not. It looks like it's not. Wave Crash is going to go into the Gyarados, but Gyarados, of course, as a water type, takes that very well. Assurance firing off of the Kingambit into what? Okay, so it looks like Olsson was calling a potential Indeedee switch in here, and that call didn't happen there. The Assurance, of course, would have done a hell of a whole lot to Indeedee. But a very interesting turn 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because the one thing that's good, you were able to get the Intimidate on the turn, so it does help you.
Yep.
And because it is at speed form, you can just use Intimidate to constantly keep trying to weather it down some. We do see Wave Crash doing an absolutely tremendous amount of damage, but taking a lot of recoil here. But Waterfall is a good amount. Oh, unfortunately, not really, just because of the defense boost and because it is resisted. But I'm actually surprised. Well, the Assurance does get double damage and absolutely takes care of the Dozo. So there it goes. And not normally we see Dozo last a lot longer, but not this time. Olsson was a little bit ready, and Dozo goes down. There's only Tatsu on the field.
Right, I feel like Olsson did a really good job trying to kind of clear Dozo out here, and now we see Indeedee coming in. Now I feel a lot of times that Tatsu is very underestimated when it comes to its attacking potential. It actually has a base 120 special attack that I think people really sleep on. And it's really interesting also that we see here that instead of having Armarouge put in, we have Indeedee here. So maybe this is a potential situation where you have a follow me and you're trying to let that 120 special attack shine on Tatsu.
Absolutely. It does hit really hard. And so it can be used, outside of just the commander ability. So that is something we have seen before. But interesting spot that Olsson's in here. You want to preserve King Gambit's damage, but you also could potentially take like a Draco or Muddy Water, things like that. So it's just a matter of like, okay, what do you value the most here? Is it your Gyarados, or is it, of course, your King Gambit, and we do see the mice come back out, the Mousehold family joining the party, and we do see a Terra here. So this is going to be interesting. Wanted to see what kind of Terra this is. It is the Indeedee, or actually, and it is the Terra Fairy. So looking to offset, of course, the Terra Dark and get some good damage there and some stab damage on the Dazzling Gleam.
Okay, so we're going to get the extra boost on the Dazzling Gleam here. Terra Fairy Indeedee was something that I've been pretty fond of. The Muddy Water here, not doing too much to Gyarados, and not doing a significant amount to Mousehold here, enough to proc its berry. But Friend Guard really putting in the work here. And of course, these accuracy drops are going to be absolutely critical. We see the Trick Room coming up now, and now speed is kind of in Angelo's favor until the Kingambit comes in.
Absolutely. A pretty interesting spot, because what I thought Olsson was going to try to do here was just go for T-Wave, because you don't really want Trick Room going back up, plus you want more speed control. So, going for the potential flinch, of course, of Waterfall was also another great play, but unfortunately didn't work out. But you did have to take a lot of damage in Mousehold, but at least, because of that Citrus Berry proc, you are in safely. Now, I think this is a turn where you just kind of like, okay, I'll get what I can out of Gyarados, protect my Mousehold, or I can go for Super Fang, because right now you're desperately trying to put yourself in a good position. We do see the Helping Hand go to the Tatsu. This potentially just be a Muddy Water here, trying to pick up a double KO. And does it both hits and is able to pick up the Mousehold, unfortunately. So the Mouse family does have to retreat. Gyarados still here, does have a -1 accuracy drop, but does still hit the Waterfall, goes into the Tatsu, potentially trying to, I guess, just break the sash.
Yeah, or even predict a switch in for Armarouge here. But that Helping Hand, Muddy Water, really doing a lot here. We see Gyarados' jaw dropping in amazement of how much that did. And the Fluttermane coming in here as well. Of course, not really in the best position with this Trick Room scenario. But as long as you keep on waterfalling into that Tatsu slot, you're kind of safe from an Armarouge switch in, and that's all they got left, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, all you have to do now is kind of wonder, like, can your Fluttermane tank any damage coming this way from a Muddy Water, Psychic? You just have to know
Shadow Ball
how you trained it now.
Yeah.
That is the biggest question here. If you've trained it well enough, it is that bulky, then you potentially could maybe even pick up 1 KO here. Then you, of course, have a really great spot where, of course, you do have King Gambit in the back, but we do see the Helping Hand, Muddy Water. Ooh, we do get an avoid there. Now, that's huge, because this is the one you wanted to hit more than anything. Gyarados, it was already going to go down to pretty much anything. Wanted to get this fantastic chip damage, but this is a huge amount of damage here. Of course, Tatsugiri does go down. So now, this is where it gets interesting, because now King Gambit is free to come back in, and now it is everybody's favorite time. It is King Gambit versus Armarouge. King Gambit is the slowest thing on the field. And now you have to play these games, though, because, of course, you do have to worry about, hey, does it protect? Is it follow me? Where do you want it? Targeting is so important this turn.
It absolutely is. And, you also have the Terra Fairy on Indeedee, but you also have the Terra Fairy on Indeedee, so you can't put it on Armarouge, right? You can now at a position where you can follow me an Assurance away, but you can't necessarily follow me a Dazzling Gleam or anything else like that. But of course, it takes it pretty well here. So it's going to be interesting mind games to see played. And of course, if you go with the Kingambit and you just Iron Head the Indeedee, then you can take it out. So this is a very interesting setup here as the last couple of turns of Trick Room tick off. And we still have Psychic Terrain on the field. We have just a couple more turns of it left. It's all going to depend on how this Armarouge positions itself.
Absolutely. I'm kind of surprised Olsson locking in those moves very quickly, not really taking his time to assess kind of what could happen here. So we do see the follow me, so luckily there's no protects or anything. So this potentially could be a KO just because of that Iron Head. Now it all depends what is the move of choice, and can Angelo pick up the KO, because the Fluttermane has got to go. More than anything, I think the Fluttermane has to go, even though you do have to worry about potential Sucker Punch when terrain is over. We do see the Armarouge potentially going for the KO here on the King Gambit, which it does, but this, of course, spells the doom, because Fluttermane is now free to attack with that super effective Shadow Ball. Then, of course, you can protect the next turn, get out of Trick Room safely, and then that should be the game. So Olsson potentially is picking up a game here, and we might go to game 3.
Yeah, this could be huge here as the Shadow Ball is going to fire off this Life Orb boosted Flutter Mane, and that is enough to wrap it in here, giving a quick victory here for Olsson. Well, not necessarily a quick victory, but a hard-earned victory at best over Angelo here. So now we're moving to game 3. Very, very interesting match there. I really feel like Olsson, the positioning of that last one was really, really solid and was a really big improvement over game 1. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just the things that Olsen did kind of lack on in the game 1 is exactly what he changed in game 2, knowing like, okay, my King Gambit is so important in this matchup, and so is my Flutter Mane. So there's only a certain amount of damage and positions I'm willing to put my King Gambit in, and then I just need to get in Flutter Mane and force you to deal with the two side by side, because then either you have to deal with Flutter Mane and King Gambit, which potentially wins with Sucker Punch, or I just get the Shadow Ball off, and because you Terra so early in Terra Fairy, that means you take all the weaknesses that King Gambit was able to take away with the Terra Grass. So really great job there, and did a great job navigating around Dozo, just hitting with a lot of good damage, and didn't really get to do Dozo things.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Angelo not bringing the Iron Hands last match, but especially when it was such a good matchup against the Gyarados and kind of really neutralized it, right? Yeah, do you think Angelo may have the issue for them may have been their turn 0 picks here and bringing Dozo? Because I mean, honestly, Olsen was able to clear that pretty well.
Well, normally I think the one thing with Angelo was thinking like, okay, you saw what I brought last time. There's no way you're potentially gonna over prepare because you saw how much Iron Hands threatened you. So thinking, okay, you know what, I can probably get away with this and bring it in Dozo. But Olsen said, no, I know what I did wrong. I'm gonna bring the same stuff and I'll be fine. And that, of course, over thought process of trying to counter pick Olsen really backfired a little bit on Angelo there, but I'm pretty sure Iron Hands is probably coming back, and this is something that I think Olsen has to worry about when he makes these picks and how he's going to play this lead. Mousehold is very important just because it gives you Friend Guard and it gives you a couple turns where you can potentially get off some Super Fangs here. This is the setup. This is, of course, I believe the open team sheet, this is the setup version of Iron Hands, so it doesn't have as much bulk as the AV version, so it can't take a hit like most normal ones.
And let's see how this turns out here as we move over to our match and see our leads as we go out. Angelo is going to throw out Iron Hands and Mousehold, and Kingambit and Flutter Mane is going to be the leads for Olsen. So Olsen kind of sticking to his guns here, but different game plan coming out of Angelo.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is an interesting spot just because, you do have the setup here, which you can follow me, and then you just Friend Guard, of course, amazing ability, and it can help you tank a lot of attacks. But the question is, like, how much attacks are you willing to take with just spamming Terra Dazzling Gleam? And of course, this Intimidate is going to help a lot, and you can just potentially preserve King Gambit for later. But it looks like Olsen might just go on the offensive here, where he does have Gyarados in the back and could just do that instead, because a Drain Punch would be pretty devastating.
We shall see as we see a Terrastalization. I believe this is actually from Angelos. No, this is from Olsen's side into that Flutter Mane. Flutter Mane's going to Terra Fairy here, which means, yeah, even more a Dazzling Gleam damage that can happen here. As we see also Angelo going to go for the Terrastalization as well, going for that Grass Terra on Iron Hands here. Or no, it's Fire Terra, excuse me. Yeah. Making sure that it can't get burned or anything else, but more importantly, it doesn't take as many hits from that Dazzling Gleam. Protect, gonna fire off, keep Mousehold safe for this turn. And now we see the Dazzling Gleam, of course, firing off from Flutter Mane with that Terra boosted damage. Not super effective against this Iron Hands, but and doing just a tiny little chisel. Assurance, even though it's doing double damage, also still not doing what it needs to. But instead they go for a Belly Drum. Belly Drum's going to leave it with 1 HP, which is going to proc its berry. Now this Iron Hands is at max attack.
Yeah, but a little scary just because you kind of put yourself in the tough spot because that's a low amount of health. I mean, you did get, of course, the damage. The setup you needed off, but that's really close. I mean, it was so close. Just one or two more hit points, and that Belly Drum wouldn't have been able to go off. So, and even if it did, you would be at like basically KO range. So
Yeah.
really tight there. And luckily it paid off, and now we do see the follow me. So let's see how this turn goes, because I'm pretty interested in how much damage Olsen can do here. We do see the
Oh,
Moonblast come out.
we see Moonblast. Dazzling Gleam may have been the ticket out of that, but we see just a Moonblast into that with the follow me. Mousehold will take this hit and hopefully allowing this fully boosted Iron Hands to do its thing. Low
It's
kick coming
faster.
off of
Oh,
Kingabit. It takes out this Iron
it's
Hands.
faster.
Oh,
Oh, that's
wow.
huge.
So much investment in that Iron Hands just to see it go down to a low kick. King Gambit being
Oh,
just fast enough to do it. Oh, that's
and
heartbreaking.
that it's not over just yet, but that's a really tough way to go down here, because now King Gambit versus Side Spam is not what you want to see here. And there's
No.
still two more Pokemon in the back for Olsen. You invested all your resources in that setup only to go down because the King Gambit happens to be faster, which is just... And actually, we should have saw this coming, because in game one, we did see that Iron Hands under Trick Room did outspeed him, go for the Drain Punch, so we should have known.
Yeah.
And Angelo, I think, forgot about that game one.
Oh, that is absolutely nuts. And and even on top of that, you can't do anything to tear your Armarouge to mitigate damage from, you know, both Fluttermane and King Gambit. So all you got to do right here is a Shadow Ball Assurance into that Armarouge. I mean, unless it protects, of course, you know, then that's game.
Yeah, you're definitely in a good spot, but I do like this play from Olsen here. Just
Yeah.
understanding my win con isn't the Fluttermane, it's actually the King Gambit. So I don't want to put it in any danger. I have Mons that can use his resources while I just
Right.
try to get out as much damage as I can with Fluttermane, because even if you do hit me with something, I'm not going to take as much damage. So I'm just going to try to do as much damage as possible, put everything in range, and then bring back Mousehold and King Gambit for later. So really, really great job here by Olsen, knowing
Oh yeah.
I need to preserve King Gambit because it is the end-all, be-all win con.
Yeah, and a great switch in here. Gyarados taking that armor cannon right on the chin for Kingabit. Able to really kind of neutralize any potential damage coming out of it. The Trick Room now, though, does swap the speed tiers back in Angelo's favor, but you still have to worry about Kingabit coming back in.
Absolutely. This is something you have to worry about. Not just that, now you're also having to deal with this Fluttermane just continuing to spam damage at you, and it's not fun. Because now, even if you try to double tap the Fluttermane, because of Friend Guard, should be able to tank it, but we just do see a follow me. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be in either Armor Cannon or a... Well, it is an Armor Cannon. It could have been potentially of course, expanding force, but unfortunately not. And with the Friend Guard, that's what it does right there. The
Friend
little
Guard
mice
coming
that
in
likes the health.
clutch.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And now you get off more damage. This all but guaranteed Olsen will move on here, because King Gambit is in the back, and there is no way you can get through a Gyarados, King Gambit, and Mousehold at the same time. So really well done here, and just an amazing turn. Putting all those resources Angelo put into getting that belly drum up, unfortunately not working out in his favor, just because King Gambit ended up being faster and able to get that huge low kick.
That was absolutely huge, and you're right. I feel like at this point, we're really circling the drain. You've got and we see the cancellation there. So Angela's going to go ahead and give this one to Olsen. That is a tale of big risk, big reward.
Absolutely.
And taking that risk and it not showing up. But Olsen there playing it safe. Again, the positioning with the king a bit. If you place your king on the right place on the board, it's checkmate every time. And that was exactly what happened there.
And that, just going into the references, then you can basically say Fluttermane was the queen. Just absolutely doing massive amounts of offense while the king just slowly take one step at a time, putting himself in position while the queen just doles out massive amounts of damage, taking the rook, taking the knight, taking the pawns, just until the point where it's like, I have no resources left to beat the king in the end. And that's exactly what happened. And just a really, really well played lead from Olsen, just knowing I need to just get off some damage here, no matter what happens. And unfortunately, just a slight, just one itty bitty mistake, just not remembering that the speed tiers, you did underspeed in Trick Room in game one. That came back to haunt Angelo because he went all in on the belly drum. King Gambit ended up being faster, and it probably wasn't even by that much. Was able to get the low kick and finish off the job. Really, really beautiful game from both of them. It was a fantastic, marvelous game from both of them. Take nothing away from Angelo. Anyone can cook. He was cooking, but just
Oh
at
yeah,
the last second, just burner was a little too high. Just forgot to
just
take it
a
off the
little
stove,
bit.
and that's kind of what
A
happened.
little bit, yeah. All right, well, that will wrap it up for our first round of Top Cut here. We know that Olsson VGC is moving on, so we'll probably be following him for even more matches. So stick around. We got more finals coming your way.